Hello, everyone. Very good morning and good evening, and welcome to our SAP IBP overview session. So, our today's session, we have our expert in IBP is Sam. Sam would be joining us shortly, and he would be taking a session with me for this IBP. And we are starting a new batch on IBP very soon. Support team will let us know that what would be the batch timing. So, we thought that giving IBP overview is a good point before we start the complete batch on SAP IBP. Now, I would be starting it up and then I would be giving it over to Sam so that he can take you deeper into the IBP. Agenda from today's session would be that if you are the one who don't know anything about IBP, IBP kya hai, mere ko nahi pata, right? If you don't know anything about IBP, in today's session, you would be going with the very much of clarity that what is the IBP from SAP, what kind of product it is, and what kind of solutions are delivered under this product that you should be able to take away from today's session. That should be the agenda, right? Now, if you have experience into the logistics, planning is required throughout the logistics. Throughout the logistics, we require some kind of plan. Let's say if we start from the sales side, the logistics we would be having, if I will quickly draw a logistics. You would be having three big segments: manufacturing, inwards, outwards. Okay. Manufacturing inwards, outwards. What do I mean by this? That we are receiving some materials. We are actually on the machines. We are manufacturing some materials and we are selling some materials. In all three phases, we will be requiring some kind of planning. Outwards means we want to sell it. Okay. How much we want to sell it? The other two kind of industries are there, right? First industry is make to stock. Another industry is make to order. If you go through a lot of different segments, let's say your automotive industry, your FM foods manufacturing, your consumer goods, your electrical industry, your high-tech industries, many industries would be working on make to stock model, where basically they would be producing it, they would be stocking it, and once the order comes, they would be selling it. So the planning is more relevant. Planning will there for the make to order also. Down the level planning would be there, but the front the level planning would be there. If you want to sell it, I need to know my manufacturing unit would be producing it and stocking it. I need to tell them ki, how much they need to produce it. To do that, I need to do the first planning at this level. That is called my demand planning or my S&OP planning, sales and operations planning. How much I need to sell? How much I need to sell? I need to forecast that in the month of January, February, March, each product, what quantities we are going to sell. I need to forecast that. If I would be able to forecast that, then I would be able to give it to my manufacturing team that what they need to produce it. Then they would be doing how much the production is required, right? So demand planning and sales and operations planning would be required so that I can forecast how much I need to sell. And that would be very much relevant for the industries which work onto the make to stock model. And 60 to 70% industries works onto the make to stock model, where they have a distribution centers, where they stock the product. And when the actual demand comes as a sales order, the stock is already there and it is supplied from there. A lot of industries work into that model because they want to reduce the timeline to provide the product. But there are some product which is highly customized, big machines, big machineries, construction industry that need to be provided as per the requirement. In that case, we don't require sales and operations planning when it is make to order, right? But the industries which work onto the make to stock, I need to plan that how much I need to sell it. That comes under my demand, sales, and operation planning. Then once I know that in the month of January, 800 is required, can you tell me that how much the manufacturing need to produce this product M1 If sales and operations planning said in month of January, 800 we need to sell it, how much manufacturing need to produce? Quickly, over the chat. Quickly, over the chat. How much manufacturing need to produce? 800 more or less? 800 more. More than 800, 800. So now the another planning would be required here. Okay. So once sales and operations planning tells us ki bhaiya, we need 800 to sell, it does not mean 800 to produce. Might be there would be already stock I have. Stock of 200 I already have. Maybe I already have my plan, my production order I have already planned for 100. So I need to match this. How much of the stock already there? How much is the demand? How much of the production order is there? Again, another kind of planning would be required here. That planning, we call it as a MRP, material requirement planning. That planning I require it is called MRP, material requirement planning, which will be telling us if I have this situation, 800 minus 200, okay, minus 100. And if I say that my safety stock should be there of 100, then plus 800 plus 100 for the safety stock will come. So 600 I need to produce. So it depends what kind of stock I have. So another kind of planning need to happen here, which will tell me that how much I need to produce. I need to produce 600. So that is called material requirement planning. Now this 600, which date I need to produce, what time I need to produce, when exactly my production order need to start, which work center I need to use it. That planning also we need to do it. That is called my PPDS planning, production planning and detailed scheduling. That's another set of planning that I would be planning that, okay, which work center, which machine I need to plan, what exactly the start time would be there, what exactly the finish time would be there. That is called PPDS, production planning and detailed scheduling. I need another set of planning here, another tool for the planning. So PPDS, MRP, demand planning, sales and operations planning. Then MRP will be doing one more thing. MRP can do, what MRP can do is, MRP can tell us, it can separate it out that what are the raw materials are required to produce this 600, what are the raw materials are required. How much of the raw materials planning would be required. Okay. So that also MRP can tell. Then we have a procurement planning. Before procurement planning, there would be something which is called inventory planning. We need to also plan the inventory. All right. Maybe we are saying that for raw materials, now this raw material which is required to produce this 600, it might not be required for only this M1 material. This raw material is required for M1, M2, M3, M4, 50 another products is using this raw material, right? Then I need to accumulate those requirements. Or I can say that, boss, this is my major raw material. Okay, I am producing the fruit juices. Sugar is my major content. So rather than depending on the requirement, I would be doing here the inventory optimization planning. So there is another set of planning can come into the picture, which is inventory optimization. I will optimize my inventory. I will de-link this materials from my sales and operations planning, and I will manage the buffer stock for them. I will manage the reorder point, safety stock. So another inventory optimizing planning would be required. And based on the inventory optimization requirement, and based on the requirement come from the MRP, will be requiring a procurement planning. So from the procurement, from the manufacturing, from the outward, different sets of plannings are required. One of the planning which would be very important would be your sales and operations planning and demand planning. Because the way we plan our finished goods, the way we plan our products which we need to sell it, exactly the same way down the level planning would be done. If the top planning is not done in a correct way, your bottom planning, the manufacturing planning and the procurement planning will also go on toss, right? So it's very important. This part is governing the full supply chain in the make to stock scenarios. So this need to be done efficiently in the sales and operations planning. Your forecasting will also come into the picture. Your forecasting algorithm will also come into the picture. So many things come into the picture. It's not that easy to draw the S&OP for the complex scenarios, for the big businesses. There will be so much of influencing factors that all need to be considered. Then we need to bring and prepare a plan so that that can be fed it to the MRP, so that MRP can identify how much of production we need to do it. So this would be important to draft the demand planning. So there would be separate tools which will be required for this planning. There's a separate tool which is required for the MRP planning, material requirement planning. There's a separate tool for the inventory optimization planning. There's a separate tool for the production planning and detailed scheduling. Okay. And there would be separate expertise required in each of these departments, in each of these areas. So that's why you will be overall understand ki planning kya hai and why planning is required. To procure, I need to plan how much I need to procure, when I need to procure. To produce, I need to plan how much I need to produce, when I need to produce, which material I need to produce. For selling also, I need to plan that how much of sales order I'm expecting for each material in each week, every week, how much of the selling I am expecting. So that all I need to plan it. To do the planning, we have different tools, different products available from SAP or outside SAP also. Okay. So our focus would be more on to the SAP side. So today will be the overview session, and then we'll be jumping into the detail of IBP sessions, which the new batch we are starting very soon for IBP. Then we'll go into that. So sales planning, production planning, material shortage planning, inventory planning, supply planning, transfer planning. If materials need to come from one plant to another plant, I have another subsidiary, I have another plant who is producing that material. I need to get it from him. So that is in between plant to plant planning. That also need to have source planning, whether I should get it from plant A, plant B, or plant C, from which plant I should get the material. So that kind of plannings also would require. So now you understand what are the different kind of plannings are there, right? Now we jump into the another part, different planning solutions. What are the different planning solutions has been offered by SAP? Okay. So we have ECC. Now we have SAP S4HANA, and then we have IBP also. We have a different product. So ECC, you know, that is the product from SAP, which is widely used, but it is going to sunset by 2027. And most of the people are moving to SAP S4HANA. ECC, make a note, SAP always say ECC is my transaction engine. SAP never say that ECC is my planning engine. ECC is not my planning engine. SAP always sell the product as a ECC is my transaction engine, where the business can do their transaction activities. Okay. Because the transaction activity load would be that high that that engine cannot run advanced plannings. When there is a requirement of advanced planning, SAP come with another product, APO. But APO is also going to sunset. By 2030, APO is also going to sunset. Now, both ECC plus APO would be replaced by S4HANA plus IBP. S4HANA plus IBP would be replacing ECC plus APO. First, let's see what are the planning features are there in ECC. ECC, we have MRP, material requirement planning is there. Although we don't call it as a planning engine, but we have a basic planning functionalities are available. Okay, the basic planning functionalities are available. So MRP is a very basic functionality, which is available in ECC, material requirement planning, which checks demand versus supply, okay, versus stock. And then it tells us that how much we need to procure it and how much we need to produce it. Okay. But MRP has a lot of constraints. A lot of constraints are there in MRP. If you jump into my PP excellence session, I cover in detail ki bhaiya, what are the problems in MRP, and we fill the full sheet ki bhaiya, what are the problems in MRP. MRP is very basic engine. Okay, very basic planning, very basic algorithm is there. That basic algorithm of planning has been given in ECC. That's available. Then we have a sales and operations planning. It is available in ECC, but it is already marked as obsolete. SAP does not recommend to use S&OP from ECC, neither from S4HANA. In ECC area also, if you ask SAP that the S&OP demand planning need to be used, SAP refer the tool, SAP recommend the tool APO, Advanced Planning and Optimization, because S&OP require complex algorithms, and the S&OP in ECC has a very basic algorithms, very basic forecasting tool is there, which is not that sufficient. Whenever business start using it, then they come to know that, okay, I need so many other things, and this tool does not support, so we need to go to APO. We have a long-term planning also is available in ECC. Long-term planning can be done. Capacity leveling can be done, and ATP can be done, available to promise. These all are very complex things. The people who does not have any idea about planning would be having a little bit difficult time to understand. But long-term planning is planning in advance that after 6 months, after 1 year, how much I would be selling it. That kind of planning is there. This is also going to obsolete. Capacity leveling is there, capacity planning is not there. Capacity planning means I would be able to tell each machine how much I need to produce. That machine has having a capability to produce 500, capacity is 500, so I should do on that machine, I should only do 500. That kind of planning MRP does not do. But we can do the capacity leveling is removing the existing orders from one work center, one machine to another machine. That is called leveling the capacity, moving out from one machine and giving to another machine. ATP is available to promise. Available to promise is used when we have orders from customer. We have a stock, right? And as per our planning, we have a stock of 500. And we got multiple customers, multiple orders we got it, and total orders we got it 700. Although we did our forecasting, although we did our sales and operations planning, but exactly meeting would be very difficult. If some tools give 60 to 70% of accuracy in sales and operations planning, still we consider is a good tool, right? Now the 700 is order, 500 is stock. Different customer, which customer I need to supply this 500 stock? How this need to be distributed between the customer? The tool which is used is called ATP, available to promise. We also have now advanced tools available for that. So these all are very basic functionality. Advanced functionality in ECC area, SAP has given through APO. So let's see what functionality came through APO. By the way, the batch timings, which will be starting for the IBP, I got the message from Bhupender. It's starting from 28th January, 7:30 a.m. IST, and then after that, every Saturday and Sunday we'll be having a session on IBP, 7:30 a.m. IST. Okay, Bhupender, you can drop the message to everyone. Now, APO is having all the advanced tools, advanced algorithms, demand planning. Okay, the sales and operations planning. Actually, if you want, ECS is not a tool. APO is a tool. PPDS, if you want to do the capacity planning, that my order should be generated as per the capacity available of the machines. PPDS is a tool. If you need advanced planning, if you need an advanced GATP, advanced available to promise, that is available in GATP, global available to promise. I have a stock available in 3 different distribution centers. I'm having orders coming from 4 different customers. So those orders need to be supplied from which distribution center? That level of planning, if you want it, that level of available to promise, if you want it, GATP is solution. SNP, supply network planning. If you want to do the supply network planning, that one distribution center need to receive from multiple manufacturing plants, right? So let's say this is my distribution center. This can get from M1 plant. This can get from M2 plant. This can also get from the M3 manufacturing plant. They all 3 can supply to distribution center the same product. If there is a requirement in distribution center, whether it need to come from M1, whether it need to come from M3, or it need to come from another supplier, third-party supplier. That kind of advanced decision, if the planning team need to make, SNP is a solution. Supply network planning is a solution for it. These all things is not available in ECC. But the thing is, even APO is going to down. APO would not be available. So all these tools is going to replace. So this demand planning solution And the advanced solution, the more advanced functionality is available in IBP, Integrated Business Planning. PPDS solution is moving to S4HANA. GATP solution is moving to S4HANA. SNP solution is moving to IBP. And much other functionality would also be added. Your inventory optimization is also added in IBP. Inventory optimization is also added in IBP. Okay, so this is how the APO is going to down, ECC is going to down, and now we have S4HANA. S4HANA has more planning functions. MRP is there, MRP live is there. Now we have a DDMRP also, demand-driven MRP. Demand-driven MRP is a tool for your inventory optimization. This DDMRP is also available in IBP. Is inventory optimization, DDMRP is available in both. DDMRP is available in S4HANA also, and DDMRP is available in IBP also. We have a predictive MRP. So here we were having a long-term planning, right? So this long-term planning is getting replaced by predictive MRP in S4HANA. Okay, it is predictive MRP is a new name for the long-term planning, but has been done very innovative way. This part we cover into our PP Excellence session. S&OP still is not available. Demand planning is still marked as obsoleted in SAP S4HANA. It's available, but marked as obsoleted. SAP does not recommend to use demand planning and S&OP to use from SAP S4HANA. Recommendation for demand planning and is to go through the IBP. We have embedded PPDS and we have advanced AATP to replace GATP solution. Now there are different planning things are there, right? We have MRP, we have a DDMRP, MRP live, predictive MRP, PPDS, S&OP, AATP. So these different tools have been provided from the different solutions. S4HANA has these solutions. Now let's see what IBP has. What we are going to, these all things will not be covering in this session. These are the S4HANA part. What IBP is having is integrated business planning. Okay, we are basically we would be having a multiple. Where is my IBP solutions? Yeah. So sales and operations planning would be there. Demand planning would be there. Supply planning would be there. Inventory optimization would be there. Supply chain control tower would be there. So these kind of solutions would be available in IBP. Okay, these kind of solution would be available in IBP. So IBP is a basically complete planning solution from SAP, and SAP is recommending it as a standalone planning solution, which can integrate with ECC, which can integrate with S4HANA, which can also integrate with the known SAP systems to do the planning. So SAP is trying to project IBP as a standalone planning tool, which can integrate with other ERP systems and give you the planning solutions. Now, I'm not an IBP expert. I have worked on few projects where the APO has been used. One of the project where IBP is used, but I am not an IBP expert. The IBP expert we have is Sam. And Sam is, okay. Before I go and introduce Sam, I will quickly check, do we have any question till now? Do we have any question till now? If you don't have any questions, now we'll be jumping into, now you have a background, a base, कि भैया planning क्या है? People who come from non-planning background, they understand कि planning क्या होता है. Different tools, different terminologies, maybe a little heavy would be there. MRP, DDMRP, PPDS, so much of things there. Actually, planning is not that easy. Planning is very complex. The planning tools always in ECC, in APO consultants was heavily paid, not heavily, highly paid out of all the different solutions we have, all the different products and modules we have. Similarly, IBP is also heavily paid. One IBP end user, okay, one IBP end user earn similar to any SAP SD MM consultant. So you can think about what IBP consultant would be earning. Okay, demand is very high. It's a niche skill. It's not easy to understand. Complexity is there, but wherever the things are complex, where the things are not easy, and if you learn that, you get a better opportunities there. Don't forget to subscribe our channel and click on bell icon to update yourself with latest SAP videos. IBP is not embedded, Vinay. IBP is a separate product. It's a cloud-based product. It's not embedded on S/4HANA. It's a separate cloud-based product. You need to have a separate license for that product. Okay. Sam has already answered कि भैया it's the BPC is more from the finance planning and IBP is more towards the supply chain planning. Okay, now with that, the questions which you have asked, I would like to welcome Sam over this platform so that he can give you the overview of IBP. Before I welcome Sam and before Sam start, let me give a quick introduction to Sam. Me and Sam knows each other, I think, more than 12 plus years. We have worked together into the projects and he is kind of a guru to me, right? I have learned a lot of planning related things, a lot of PP related things I have learned, and a lot of APO related things I have learned from Sam. Sam is having more than 20 plus years of experience. He started his career with working into the supply chains, different operations. So he has a very strong domain experience. Then he worked into the core modules like MM and PP. Then he worked into the APO. And then from the APO, when IBP started, from that point itself, Sam is working on IBP. He has handled multiple different IBP projects. And I think more than 7 years now, he's working on IBP. So he is one of the expert who know the SAP core SAP. He knows the APO and he also knows the IBP. Okay, he is associated with Shastragik Solutions for quite some time. He is our main lead trainer for the corporate training, multiple batches he has done, and almost 6 to 7 batches within the Shastragik also we have completed for IBP with Sam. And thank you, Sam, for giving your valuable time to us. I know how busy the IBP consultants are there into the multiple projects. So thank you for giving us time. And over to you, Sam, to provide the overview.
Thanks, Parminder. Thanks for the introduction. Yes, as you rightly mentioned, team, let me just give brief introduction about myself. I started my career in early 2000 with SAP production planning, and slowly I also picked up SAP QM, right? So that's normally the starting point most of you would also have. I started doing application maintenance projects, slowly got into the rollouts, and then got into implementations. While doing the SAP PP execution consultancy, I realized that, as Parminder also rightly mentioned, always you would see around you people who have planning background get more benefits, right? It could be more visibility, it could be more monetary benefits, and so on. So that brought a lot of curiosity within me that can I also learn planning, right? And then I started going through certain trainings related to SAP APO because that time in early 2000, most of the organizations were using ECC MRP or R3 MRP as such, right? And it was a conventional ordinary level basic planning, as Parminder mentioned. Then slowly SAP started coming up with advanced level of algorithms, and then they introduced SAP APO. So I picked up APO, and then from there my SAP planning journey started. And as Parminder rightly mentioned, starting I think 2015 onwards, SAP started focusing on advanced planning tool again, and that's where IBP came in picture. Okay, how IBP got evolved, right? I mean, initially, as we saw in the slides, we had options for carrying out forecasting, right? That is one of the planning function. Predict the demand, which is called as a forecasting, right? From functional function perspective, it is also called as demand planning. So such kind of demand planning function was introduced by SAP in one of the APO tool. So let me share my screen and probably I'll just utilize Excel sheet here, right? Right. So one of the primary function is to predict the demand, right? Do the forecasting, which is called as demand planning. So APO, SAP brought up a module called as demand planning within APO box. Okay? And the demand team within the supply chain organization would carry out this function. What all activities they would do, we will detail out in the later sessions. once the forecasting is done, once you identify a demand for a specific period, maybe it is for next 1 year, next 2 years, or even 5 years, then looking at the demand, looking at the stocks or inventory positions in your warehouses, in your manufacturing plants, identifying the shortages, and bring that demand back to the upstream location of manufacturer or supplier is called as supply planning. So SAP said, we will also provide you that functionality similar to MRP, which is called as supply planning. In APO term, they called it as supply network planning. Both can be mid to long term. So I'm just trying to also put a periodicity indicator. Okay, just copy paste it here. Then once you identify your replenishment plan, once you identify your production plan across the time period, then next activity can be doing a detailed level of operational planning, maybe for next 3 weeks, next 4 weeks, and so on, which is called as production planning and detailed scheduling. So I just use a short form here, right? This is very short term. It could be 3 weeks to, let's say, 5 weeks. Some organizations will have this detailed level of planning of 3 to 5 weeks. When we say detailed level of planning, you would work with your manufacturing team to make sure all the raw materials are available in order to produce the goods. All the machines, laborers are available in order to continue the production operation. That activity would be frozen for next 3 to 5 weeks, right? And that's the operational level detailing. Okay. SAP said, we will provide you this PPDS model for that. Okay. So for each individual business function, SAP kept on evolving new modules and introduced within SAP APO, right? And then they said, you don't need to bring all your materials within this APO box. Okay, be careful. You want to have advanced level of planning, stick to your finished goods. Okay, and only critical components you bring it into APO. Remaining, you continue to use MRP in ECC. Right? So that's how they optimized the structure. Okay. You may have a question that why not all materials? You can bring, but then you'll have to decide a win-win situation where what amount of data you want to bring it into a new system altogether. So there is a huge load on the integration, right? And that's why most of the organizations started deciding that I will only focus on my finished goods from demand perspective, from supply perspective, from PPDS perspective. That finished good plan will also generate dependent demands for components, which will be integrated to ECC, and I will continue to run MRP in ECC for those components. Okay. And if there are any critical semi-finished products, you can decide to bring it into APO. That's how individual modules got established, and APO was welcomed by most of the organizations, right? I know it was again a complex tool. Not many people were experts from the consultant's perspective, and that's why not many users were also getting comfortable. You need to have good consultant to support those kind of planning situations, right? And that's where the demand for APO consultant rise. Okay. Now, organizations started saying that, fine, we have these individual models. However, there is one more function within the organization which cut across all this, which is called as sales and operations plan. Okay. There are different stakeholders within the organization who meet with a specified frequency, discuss about all the constraints. It could be related to demand, it could be related to supply or production, and finalize the numbers, right? That process is called as S&OP. This module did not exist in APO, and that's why SAP started thinking, can we also introduce a new system altogether? And they introduced this S&OP in somewhere 20,000. 2014 or somewhere in 2015. Okay? And the system was getting evolved. Initially, they named it as S&O. Within a year, they changed the name to IBP. The name came up with the concept of, since we are talking about S&OP, it requires a lot of collaboration within the stakeholders. It's not a single function altogether. That's why it's an integrated process. And the name got evolved as Integrated Business Plan. Okay, that's the background, quick background I wanted to share with you. Parallel, I'll go to the Q&A what you have, right? But I just wanted to set up the context how IBP got evolved, right? And then SAP said, fine, now we have individual model of IBP, APO, we will also bring it into IBP. So IBP will also have individual models of demand. We will also need to give you a functionality to carry out your supply. We will also need to give you additional advanced functionality to carry out your safety stocks, right? Majorly these three. Then the question came up, slowly they started evolving other modules. Okay, the question came up, IBP looks like a good tool, which gives me a integrated platform. Can I also use it for a specific purpose of exception handling? To monitor my KPIs, right? Because this tool is also going to be used by high-level management. And some of the KPIs can be also monitored for individual supply chain organization members. So they said, SAP said, fine, let us also explore how we can introduce this functionality. Okay. I take a pause on the Excel and I'll quickly jump to the PowerPoint and probably we'll focus on this slide now. This slide talks about different modules within IBP. So we talked about individual module, which is called as IBP for demand. The purpose of this module is to make sure you are able to generate forecast, right? So there are detailed components within this IBP for demand. We will detail it out later once we get into the actual training sessions. Then once the demand is finalized, you need to find out the shortages, pass this demand to the manufacturing plant and so on, which is called as a supply activity, supply planning activity. So SAP also introduced a module called as response and supply. Then as we talked about safety stock calculations, SAP said, okay, fine. We will also create a separate module called as inventory optimization. And then there are detailed level of algorithms which are embedded in such modules. But these are individual models, right? Take an example. One organization may prefer to do only demand planning. So they may choose to only have a license for IBP for demand. Another organization may choose demand as well as supply. Another organization may choose all three combinations of safety stock calculation including, right? Then the major objective of introduction of IBP was to have this collaborative process, right? To enable this collaborative process, which is called as sales and operations planning. So SAP said, we will give you an individual module altogether, which will enable you to carry out your S&OP. What happens in S&OP? Anyway, we will discuss it, right? It has to be, we need to have a detailed discussion on this topic. Now, most of us probably would have some exposure to planning processes, and most of us probably do not have, right? We may belong to SAP production, SAP QM, MM, logistics, or any other tools perspective. But we may not have planning exposure. So we need to understand first what exactly happens from the process perspective, and then how that process can be modeled using these models, right? So when we will have a training, we will not only focus on the technicalities of it, but first of all, we'll get into the mindset of planner. That is very important. What happens in an organization in planning process perspective? If I understand that, then I'll be able to easily map that process into a system. Okay, so we'll need to get into that mindset first. And then SAP said, fine, S&OP is covered. We have individual modules of demand, supply, and safety stock calculation. Plus, from the mid-level to high-level management perspective, you also need to frequently review your KPIs, review your exception in terms of alerts, right? You may also need to have collaboration. So SAP introduced another module called as supply chain control tower. These are all individual modules. One organization can take all combinations of it, or even organization may prefer to have individual module license, right? And then the cost will vary based on number of modules you want to purchase, right? When you look at SAP ECC, you see all the modules, right? SAP PP is embedded in it, SAP MM is there, logistic is there, because these are integrated from the transaction execution perspective. But from planning perspective, you may choose to have individual license for the modules. All these are based on SAP HANA, and those are integrated. This can be also integrated with your SAP ECC, SAP APO, or even S4, right? Which is the next generation tool for execution. Right? I just wanted to focus more from the module details perspective. I'll quickly jump to next slide where I'll also talk about how IBP is integrated, right? So from the right-hand side perspective, you would see the front end. Now from SAP execution system perspective, it is always on-premise, right? You have the uh, on-premise tool where you can open up any transaction and carry out any specific process. So you have a front end accordingly. From IBP perspective, front end is Microsoft Excel. That is the primarily used front end. And there is also a web-based URL which can be also embedded and can be used for execution for certain activities. Most of the time you will see Excel is used because in older days, planners used to use Excel for carrying out S&OP. So SAP said, just to have this win-win situation, let us use front end of Excel itself, and in the back end, let IBP work. And that's why, and that could be the key for IBP's success, because then there will not be much of change management for planners. Planners will still think that it's an Excel. In the back end, the tool is IBP, right? There are certain activities which can be managed by web. It can be also integrated or handled by using your mobile apps. Okay, that's the front end on the right side. The core engine of SAP HANA, where you have to model your specific processes. So we will talk about these individual terminologies during the training sessions. What do we mean by attributes and key figures, right? Those kind of questions you may have, since you might not have exposure to BW or APO tools, but we will look into it. This is the core configuration, what you would do. When I say configuration, it's more of modeling. Okay? You will not find any SPRO kind of activity. We as consultants more are inclined towards how do I configure my SAP PP model? How do I configure my SAP MM model and so on, right? Here, when you talk about configuration, it's identifying a process, trying to think about how this can have a solution, and try to build that solution under the IBP building blocks, right? So it's a interesting visualization you would see when you try to see your existing work of SAP PP consultant or SAP MM consultant, where you're more closer to the SPRO activities. Here you would see how you would do this configuration, right? And then, since we are talking about IBP model, it requires information in terms of master data or also in terms of transaction data. So it needs to have an integration. So SAP said, in order to have this integration in place, we also need to have one technical middleware, which is called as CPIDS, Cloud Platform Integration for Data Services. It's a middleware similar to SAP PIPO, BODS, right? Those technical tools what you would have heard as part of your middleware integration. Similarly, dedicatedly for IBP, CPIDS is required. So there will be a technical CPIDS consultants who would work with us in the sense IBP consultants, in order to make sure there is a smooth integration happening from different systems. So we'll also talk about these integration concepts, right? We'll also talk about how the data can be loaded. What is the master data from IBP perspective? What is the transactional data? How would you set up the process? If any organization wants to set up demand planning, what all components you need to configure, and so on. So during training period, we will focus on first making you as a planner, you putting a planner's hat, and then start configuring the system.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and click on bell icon to update yourself with latest SAP videos.
Right. Now I'll quickly jump to the modules what we are going to focus. Right. So we'll have again a detailed overview session. We'll talk about individual modules, what are the contents of those modules, and then we'll start focusing on the configurations, which we call it as a IBP planning area architecture. Okay. Once you're comfortable with architecture, with this architecture, 70% of your core strength is strengthened here, right? When you are able to visualize what needs to be included in the planning area is nothing but an envelope, right? Similar to our clients in ECC. So once you start visualizing what exactly needs to be incorporated, 70% of your IBP skills are strengthened. So we'll talk about those planning area architecture concepts and then start getting into S&OP operational process. Okay. Then we'll start talking about integration concepts and then get into demand planning related activities, right? If I'm a demand planner or if I want to implement demand planner as a consultant, what are the functionalities? Those are actually being used in supply chain planning, and how do I configure those? Once we are done with demand planning, we'll focus on supply planning, right? So do not worry about time series concept here as of now. We will discuss that, what is the difference between time series and order series in detailed sessions. But we'll focus on the supply planning concepts, right? So that you can understand how net requirement calculations happen, what master data is required, where do I maintain this master data, how do I transfer this master data to IBP, and so on. Then the next topic would be also learn about IBP roles and authorizations. In earlier ECC world, we used to rely on our basis or security consultants to do the authorization setup. In IBP, it's within our hands. It's straightforward. You can make it as complex as possible. You can keep it as simple as possible, right? So we'll also understand the concepts behind these roles and authorizations. We should be able to configure the system. And then we also talk about alerts, part of the IBP control tower. Okay. Then once this is done, we haven't included a topic called as DDMRP. As Parminder mentioned, it will be covered in the SAP PP Excellence training. So people who join us for IBP training will be also able to leverage the advantage of learning DDMRP concepts in one of the SAP PP Excellence sessions. Okay. I take a pause here and see if there are any questions which were posted. So I'll go one by one. And if any of the question got missed out, you can shout later. Right. So first question, obvious. Is there a prerequisite to learn IBP? To some extent, you can say yes. To some extent, you can say no. No prerequisite. Now, I'll try to elaborate both answers. Right. Let's say if you have exposure to SAP in any of the module. So half of your part is done. You know how transactional system works, right? The only part is you need to understand how planning function works. So with the exposure of SAP PP, SAP MM, some of the functionalities, some of the concepts would be similar. People who have exposure to MRP would try to understand it more faster. Having said that, if you are a fresher, you have no exposure to SAP. Even in that case, I have seen people learning IBP so fast because it's a fresh mind, first of all, right? They don't have a background of MRP. They don't have background of PP. they start getting into planner's hat as soon as possible, and then they start understanding the integration prerequisites as well. So if you have SAP background, it's an advantage, but that's not mandatory. What is required is having a mindset of thinking how planning function works, and then try to visualize those processes and see how you want to model it. Okay, so Nikhil, I hope I was able to answer. I have seen in my last 3 years, I have seen 80% of freshers got skilled in IB. It was so quick. 20% definitely, because those had exposure to ECC modules, it helped them to get a lead level roles in IB, right? From freshers, probably it will take some time to get up to a speed, but people who have SAP PP, AVM, logistics, SD background get bigger roles. And we'll talk about different roles once we start into a training sessions, right? How we can utilize this knowledge, not only to become a consultant, but there are a lot of roles available in business domain where you can utilize this supply chain knowledge and showcase yourself as a supply chain expert, not only from the system perspective, but also from the process perspective. Can you please give me comparison of competitive solutions like Anaplan and Kinaxis? It's a question from anonymous attendee. Right. So SAP said, fine, we will give you a tool which will have all the advanced functions. That's the SAP IBP. However, SAP also has competitors. So as you rightly mentioned, there are tools called as like Kinaxis, Anaplan, Blue Yonder, O9 is coming up nowadays, and so on. The advantage of SAP IBP is it's an SAP tool. It's a renowned company. Important part is smooth collaboration or integration with SAP ECC. Non-SAP tool will have to struggle to create all those complex integrations with ECC. Because whatever planning tool you use, you are not going to give up on SAP ECC or SAP S4, right? That is still going to be there. So that's the key advantage of using SAP IBP. There are certain disadvantages, which I'll come back again. Which modules of IBP are matured, which modules are yet to be matured. I'll talk about it also. Will optimizer be included in the training? Right. So Akash, we will focus on the supply planning concept. Because what I have seen over the trainings, right? People take a lot of time to first understand supply planning concepts. Once you have the overview of concept, then use of heuristic or use of optimizer doesn't make any difference. We will talk about the differences. What do we mean by heuristic? What do we mean by optimizer? Right? But when we'll go through the demos, we will focus on heuristics because that is a basic. Once we are done with the basic, then only we should start talking about next step. But we will also cover what does optimizer includes, right? We may not have long detailed sessions on it, but yes, definitely we'll cover optimizer concepts, right? If you have background of SAP API optimizer, it will help you to grasp this concept. Otherwise, I would suggest for other people, we'll focus on the supply planning process altogether. Then understand heuristic. And then once you get grip on these concepts, start thinking about optimizer. Don't try to jump on optimizer immediately. None of the organizations have implemented optimizer from zero, right? They evolved. They first implemented heuristic, got matured, then shifted to optimizer concept. Anyway, we'll talk about optimizer also in training. Can I get this full recording? Probably yes. Parminder and Bhupinder can elaborate on that. So I'll go back to the chat. Trying to scroll. Let's see. I can find out. Right. So there was one question also from Shakil. We have to learn all tools showing in IBP solutions? No need. So you can start with the S&OP, Shakil. You can start with demand planning. And then eventually, once you have a grip on those, you can shift to supply planning, then shift to control tower, and so on, right? Trying to learn all modules in a go, probably it may help, it may not also, right? Based on your capability, based on your experience, and so on. There are a lot of parameters involved. But if you want to focus on IBP configurations, if you want to focus only on S&OP or demand, yes, there are roles within organizations who only ask for, I need a consultant for demand planning exposure, right? So that way also you can plan your journey. Uh, can MM consultant learn IBP? Why not? I mean, MM consultant already has a background of procurement process, of MRP, how replenishment happens, right? So that also helps the consultant to understand the planning processes, right? Only parties we have to, at times we have to keep our MM hat aside, use a planner's hat, start thinking how planning function works, right? I'll help you understanding the planning concepts, and then see if I need to configure this specific module, what objects of SAP MM are going to be integrated here, right? So definitely I've seen people with SAP PP and MM primarily becoming IBP consultants, right? What kind of roles in SAP are available? Manish, trust me, there are multiple roles, right? Not only from consultant perspective. What you would have also experienced is with SAP execution system background, you tend to remain as a configuration consultant. But with the IBP exposure, you not only remain a system-specific planning consultant, but you also open up additional roles from business community perspective. There are a lot of roles within supply chain organizations like demand planning, sales and operations planning. We have different options within commercials, marketing, which also requires this planning expertise. And I have seen people getting such kind of roles. Plus, if you are already having 10, 12 plus of years of experience with this kind of exposure, I have seen people getting higher roles within ECC itself, getting a role as an overall test lead, overall cutover lead, because now they understand end-to-end processes. They are not focused only on SAP MM, SAP PP, right? Focusing on specific modules sometimes restrict our growth. So it is always good to widen our exposure in that area. And supply chain planning cut across all processes, starting from procurement. When I talk about procurement, it's a vendor relationship up to my distribution, right? Including manufacturing. So supply chain planning will help us, first of all, understand the whole overall organizational behavior, and any senior roles which are coming up within the organizations can be also taken up by us. Okay. I scroll down. Let's see any other thing. ATTP doesn't exist, right? So I think Kavita, you had a question on ATTP, AATP, right? So AATP is now more into S4 bucket. It's more related to the operations, right? So that's why it's not kept in IBP. Yeah, you need to know PP. Yes, having knowledge of PP is advantage, but it is not mandatory. You will realize that when we talk about these training topics, right? I'll more focus on processes, and I'll make sure you start understanding the business functions first. And that's sometimes a pity that we as a SAP consultants always focused only on system. Some people also focused on processes and then they rise the ladders fast, right? So we first need to start talking about business processes, business language, planner's language, and then system, right? So that way it will help us. Right. So Shakil, we talked about BPC and IBP. If you have exposure to BPC, it's more from the financial planning perspective, right? But IBP is more from the supply chain planning perspective. And we will more talk about quantity related plan. Yes, since we are talking about integrated business planning and even financial team members are also part of the stakeholder management. So we will also have a review of our revenues in IBP, but it's more driven by supply chain. And that's how SAP has bifurcated usage of PPC or usage of IBP. No need to become expert in all modules. Okay, start slowly. Get good grip of configuration, which is planning area architecture. Start understanding what planner talks. Start understanding how demand planning works. That's the starting point. Then we'll talk about supply planning. Then we'll talk about safety stock calculations and so on. Right? Now, if I go back to my training curriculum, we are going to have focus on mature modules only, right? Which is configuration, planning area architecture, S&OP, demand planning, and time series supply planning. Then roles and authorizations and control tower. What does this mean? This means if I go back again to the PPT, when I talk about response and supply, we will cover part of supply. Response we will skip because it's not matured yet. Okay, so we will focus on existing matured functionalities of supply, which are being asked by the organizations to implement. Nobody's asking to implement response yet because it's not matured. We will not talk about inventory optimization in detail because it's not matured yet. There are organizations which have implemented it, but trust me, elaborating its result, it's a pain for consultants. Okay, but we will discuss the concepts. We'll not have a deep dive. We'll not have a deep dive on response. We'll not have a deep dive on inventory. We'll have deep dive on S&OP, demand, and supply, which is a key. If you know any of these modules, right, you'll be able to sell yourself. That's our expectation. That's our attempt, right? And then this is a supporting model. So we will also talk about the custom alerts to which are part of the supply chain control tower. We will also talk about alerts in S&OP, right? But additionally, SAP has also given a functionality of custom alerts, which we will learn, right? Focus is again getting into hat of planner. We should start talking planner's language first of all. Then understand how this process can be mapped using IBP. You will become a modeling consultant, modeling lead. And then you will start guiding the juniors how to configure the system. People with a experience with PPMM, I've seen those getting a lead roles and they become a front end while having business workshops, requirement gathering sessions, solution prototypings, and help the junior team to see how we can prototype those solutions, how we can deliver those uh, planning processes, right? Probably I have tried to cover as much as possible. Just wanted to give a clear message that this training, you will find it very different than our SAP ECC trainings. Because if I'm training you in SAP ECC, I will only focus on configurations, part of master data, and the transactions, right? Here, in addition to those system steps, we will also focus on how a planning function works in organization. That is very key. And once you start talking the same language, what planner talks, you have done your job. It's very easy. People who have BW knowledge will also be able to relate them when we talk about terms called as attributes or key figures, etc. But we'll go slow, right? Because in our training curriculum, we may have people who are quite fresh, who have some exposure to SAP, or who may have some exposure to business, right? So our intention is everybody should understand. That's the key. I'll take a pause and see if there are any questions. Right. So I see one question from Shivam, right? Shivam, you say you are a MM consultant, and you're still confused whether you should go for Fido development or IBP, right? Or I think it's Fury development, uh, what we are talking about, right? So I would suggest both directions are good, Shivam. Don't get confused, okay? If you want to focus on the supply chain part, then IBP is the direction. But if you want to get into technicalities of SAP, then probably Fury is the uh, direction. Fury has a limitation, Shiva. When you go to S4, you will anyway end up using the standard Furies. So why you want to focus more on development from that area perspective, right? If you have a technical background, probably you can explore it separately. But if you are a functional consultant in MM, I would recommend you to stick to the functional area. And you would see people having a functional knowledge would get better roles rather than having a technical knowledge. And now SAP technical is becoming very simple, right? We are getting rid of all customizations, right? And then you may have customizations, but it might be up out of SAP. It might be in BTP, it might be in OutSystems, some other tool, right? So try to be functional. And over the period, if you want to rise a ladder, you don't need to talk technical language. You need to talk business language. So I would recommend whether you choose Fury or IBP, focus on the business rather than the technical part of it. Understanding technical is mandatory, but talking always has to be in the business terms. To learn IBP, one should learn PPDS, not needed. PPDS is a totally different module altogether. It is only focusing on next 3-4 weeks. IBP is midterm to long term, right? And that's where, as Parminder was also mentioning, you would also see across you, people with finance background probably get highly recognized, highly visible, highly paid. Then supply chain background. So our aim is to focus on those areas where my visibility would be increased, my package would be increased, right? And in order to do that, I should be able to talk the business language. Right? When planner is talking about a supply chain planning process, I should be also able to reciprocate back in the same line. That's the attempt here. Yeah. So there is a question on, can you cover IBP and Ariba supply chain collaboration? As part of this training, we don't. Okay. We cover IBP integrations, but we don't cover IBP and Ariba integration as such. Right. And hardly you would see any of the organizations would have implemented it. But yes, there is a building block given by SAP. If you want to, if your organization is execute using Ariba, and you want to integrate that messaging with IBP during the S&OP process, you can do that. But it's a technical setup, right? We don't cover it in this training. System access, definitely there is an option. You can talk to Bhupinder, get the details, how what options we have in the training curriculum, right? There is an option for accessing system. Duration of the course and fees, you will talk to Bhupinder. There are multiple options, and accordingly, Bhupinder can suggest to the proper details. When we talk about process, when we talk about solutions, I bring all my experience from the actual project execution perspective. So I bring all those scenarios which we talked about during our implementations. So this gives us a lot of benefit from the project visualization perspective also. We don't only talk about SAP health language, right? We talk about scenarios which are actually observed in the industry and how do we map those scenarios. Post that, we also cover, if you're preparing for IBP interviews, we also cover a session to understand what could be the primarily ask questions based on your experience level. Can security consultant take up IBP? Why not? I mean, there is no restriction at all, right? The thing is, in which direction you want to build your career. If you want to get into supply chain domain, definitely yes. I have seen a basis consultant becoming IBP, and he's one of the SME within my team who is handling IBP very well. So there is no restriction at all. In fact, it became an advantage because when we talk about some technical limitations, that guy was able to relate it in terms of SAP technology, right? So there are advantage if you have any exposure of SAP models, right? Primarily, I have seen people with SAP PP, MM, logistics, SD getting into these roles, but there are people from technical backgrounds are also shifting to supply chain. Right. I think I'm good. Parminder, Bhupinder, I think you can take it ahead.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sam, for taking this time out and sharing the overview of SAP IBP with team. So Bhupender has shared the link. You guys can go to the link and there you'll be finding an option. We have multiple options there. You can subscribe for this course with IBP access or without IBP access. Both options would be available when you see. When you click on the link, the prices will also display. We provide this training. You would be having access as soon as you join. You would be having access to the recorded videos, and the live session will also start from the Saturday and Sunday. IBP server is very, very expensive because it need to be taken directly from the SAP. So we would be giving you a IBP server in a particular slot. It would not be a full 3 months access, which we can give it for SAP S/4HANA. So because it's very expensive, the single server IID costs somewhere around 70 to 80,000 rupees, which can be more than the course fee which we are charging. So we'll be giving it in a slot. You will be getting a slot of 3 hours or 4 hours time per day, which you'll be getting. That slots would also be first come, first serve. So if you enroll first and then you will be able to select in a particular day, I would be requiring this particular slot of 3 hours. So you would be able to access the system in those slot, right? So you can go and check those details. Slots would be given as first come, first serve. Okay, and the live session attendance we will be allowing you. You would be able to attend this live session, and you would also be able to attend next live session, whatever the next iterations we are doing, or within a 1 year, whatever the iterations we are doing, you would be able to attend all of them. Okay, so that access we give it to you. If you want to revise your stuff, you are most welcome, but the server is very restricted. Both options are available with server, without server, depends on you which you want to take. All the details will be sending it to you, this recordings details and all of the other details will be sending it to you over the email with this link to subscribe. When you will be clicking on the link based on the country you have joined from, the taxes will be applied based on the country you are logging in from. So the price can be different in the different countries. From our side, it's the same price, but based on the taxes applied, it can show you the different price based on your country. Okay, so click on the link to check the price and all the details will come over the email. Okay. Sam, there are two people who have raised the hand, so we'll quickly check if they have any question. If they want to ask, we'll allow them to unmute them, and then we'll end the session. Actually, we have 3 people.
Definitely.
We'll start with the Tarun. Then we'll move to Krishna, and then to Rajesh Babu. Okay, Tarun has dropped his hand. Krishna, please go ahead if you have any question. Krishna Puneet Sharma.
Yeah, I'm just wondering that any specific module you are not covering
SAP IBP.
in IBP?
Within IBP, Sam has shown the full curriculum which would be covered, right?
Right. So Krishna, if you're asking which model we are not covering, we are not covering response part of the IBP. Okay. We saw a model called as response and supply, right? So within that, we'll cover supply, will not cover response part. I'll elaborate why during the sessions. It's not matured yet. SAP is still trying to evolve it. Second model, which we are not covering, is inventory optimization. Okay. Apart
The
from that, yeah. Go
second
ahead.
question follow up that a lot of algorithm are there. So are you explaining that which algorithm to be used or by just default, okay, use this algorithm, use that algorithm, or also giving a background of the why this algorithm is used, what is the background
Yes.
algorithm of the
Right. We will definitely elaborate why this algorithm is used, what is the purpose of this algorithm, right? And then parameters which are influencing the behavior. Definitely those part. Any specific question, Krishna, on algorithm you want to specify here?
No, maybe time series and all asking, but there are many
Right.
algorithms there. But I have
Right.
seen some training in that. They are
Correct.
saying it just by default, okay, I'll use this algorithm. But they have
Right.
not given the background of the why should I use this algorithm? Why not the
Right.
other one?
Right. I think that is very key to understand why this algorithm, right? So anyway, we will discuss it during the time series discussions. There are multiple algorithms provided by SAP. What is the difference between those algorithms? That needs to be understood for sure.
And any specific project blueprint we can take and map those things?
There will not be a project as such, Krishna, but what we actually follow here is when we discuss about those topics, we also try to visualize a project situation and then try to discuss on those processes, right? So we will also have, have an hypothetical view of how a SNOP would work in a normal project, in a regular project, and how do we manage that within IBP. So that would
I'm
be
just
covered.
wondering that because you have already 7 years experience and many projects to handle.
Correct.
So can you pick up one, two real project and
That's what we do. That's
okay.
what we do. So when we talk about a hypothetical SNOP flow, right, we utilize one of my experience, how this SNOP flow was designed, what was the business requirement from that organization perspective, and so on. So you will get an idea how SNOP is implemented for a specific organization.
Okay. My follow-up question, another one, that Excel you're referring to,
Right.
I came to know that the Excel sheet has to be a lot of customization required. So are you covering that, how to customize the Excel sheet also? Macros,
Right.
micro and all.
So, correct. So there is no need of macro here. Okay. We don't cover macro. Macro is part of the backend of Excel. What you require is a visualization front end for a planner to use, which is called as a template.
But in the real project, there will a lot of required actually, a lot of changes required.
No, but there are macro-based templates which SAP provides. So we'll
Okay.
talk about how that template is created from scratch. Right? So
But I have seen a
SAP,
lot of codes required actually.
no, there's no code required. There's no code required as such, Krishna. What you need to do is normally, from IBP perspective, what SAP says is SAP has inbuilt macros, inbuilt code within those templates. We don't need to touch those. But if you want to use those templates for your dashboard usage, etc., then additionally you create macro in an offline Excel, not in IBP. You don't need a coding expertise as such.
Okay.
If you're done, Krishna, probably Rajesh Babu, you can go ahead.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and click on bell icon to update yourself with latest SAP videos.
Yeah, hi, I have one question. I'm from SAP BW background, so I'm having some idea on BPC, business planning and consolidation. And can I know the difference between that planning and this planning?
Right. So BPC, if you have an idea, Rajesh, it's more from the usage perspective, it's more used by finance. In BPC,
Okay.
you will more talk about and commercial. You will not see supply chain organization team members using BPC for their execution. It's more from the revenue generation perspective. But from supply chain perspective, what you need to make sure is you need to calculate how much quantity of finished good you want to sell, how much quantity is available in your warehouse, how much is the shortage. That quantity level planning is covered by IBP. You won't carry out that in BPC. BPC is more from the financial reconciliation tool perspective, right? You will
Okay.
have a lot of reports using BPC, but only from the financial projection perspective, not from the supply chain perspective.
Okay. And I heard there is some integration between SCAC and SAC planning and IBP planning also. Is there any integration between financial planning and supply chain planning?
Yes, SAP has provided a functionality so that you can integrate it. Okay. So SSE is one of the, and now SAP keeps on bringing new tools, right? So SAP Analytic Cloud, right? Which is more of a reporting tool for you, right?
Yes.
Yes, there can be an integration with IBP. We don't cover that as part of the training here. You will see a lot of modules can be integrated. Like somebody mentioned about Ariba. Yes, you can integrate it. Somebody mentioned about SSE. Yes, you can integrate it. But what is the use of IBP? What is the use case of IBP? That we are going to focus rather than integrations, right? If you are a planner, if you want to generate a report, can you generate it in IBP? We'll understand that, right? So there are reports because it's an Excel. You can generate it in IBP. If that report is managed by a supply chain person, definitely IBP is the tool, right?
Okay.
But if it's going to be widespread, somebody from finance to be used, somebody from execution to be refer the report, then there are additional tools like BW, SSE, B4HANA. So you'll generate reports in those specific modules.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Kaushal, go ahead if you have any questions.
Yes, sir. My question is like, is the IBP consultant expert in all the modules that is there?
No. So
Okay.
if you take example, right? I'm not expert in response. And why? Because
Okay.
response is not matured enough. So I haven't focused myself on response activities. I haven't focused myself on inventory optimization because inventory optimization, you can configure it easily. The catch is you will not be able to elaborate the results to planner. Then planner will lose the interest. And that's why I haven't focused there. What most important module use modules are S&OP, demand, and supply. So where there is a demand, I will only focus on those modules, get myself expertise in that area, and that's how I'll be able to sell myself.
And we have a certification also like for this IBP from SAP.
Yes, SAP has a certified course, right?
Okay.
As part of the training curriculum, we don't provide a certification, but
Okay.
this course will help you to prepare for the certification.
Okay. And last question, how is the demand for IBP consultant in US market, job market?
You just Google it out, Kaushal. I mean, in last 2 years, because the fact is SAP is obsoleting SAP APO, right?
Okay.
Every client has to migrate to new tool, whether it's an IBP, whether it's an non-SAP, right? And mostly people are preferring IBP for S&OP demand because it's a matured model. If we are talking about detailed level of supply planning, then there are debates happening. Can I go for IBP? Can I go for Kinaxis? Can I go for O9 and so on? But S&OP and demand is quite mature. There is no question why organizations would reject IBP for that. So there are a lot of demands. And based on your earlier experience, Kaushal, if you take an example of our earlier batch Parminder, we know Ashwini, right? So he was having experience in PeopleSoft. And then he also had an experience in supply chain. By learning IBP, he got into a lead role in US.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and click on bell icon to update yourself with latest SAP videos.
Okay, thanks.
So how do we capture this learning and how do we project ourselves? That's the key, nothing else.
Correct.
Right. I think we had a good discussion today. First of all, the purpose of this interaction was you would know who is going to train you, right? If you build trust on that person, then only you will join. Otherwise, it will become a non-interesting training curriculum, right? So my focus is always fixed. we have to first get ourselves into a planner's hat, understand what planning processes we talk about in the organization, and then how we can model those in system, right? So don't focus only on system. We have to be a planner and then system expert. Yeah, if there are no more questions, I think we're good then.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thank you everyone for asking interesting question to make this session interesting. So you all would be having a link. So we'll be catching you into the next next Sunday session. We'll be starting the IBP. So if you're interested, you can jump in and join. Ravi, do you have any last question? I see your hand is just raised.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm actually a SD consultant. So I'm trying to actually get into a new age module, so to say, right? I just want to get to the next level. Was wondering IBP is a good choice, or are you have any other suggestions, Parminder?
So it depends if you are into the SAP SD. Earlier also we have seen a lot of SAP SD consultants have jumped into APO, okay, because they have a lot of integration between the sales and operations planning. From that perspective, a lot of SD consultant became APO consultants. Now the SD consultant can also become the IBP consultant. So it totally depends on your interest. If you are super interested into the planning, I would suggest you can go for IBP. If you are more into the logistics, the execution interest is there. If you're interested into the transportation, the another module can be TM.
TM or EWM, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So from sales background, it is more related to demand generation, right? Because you are also closer to the demand generation from sales or execution perspective. Now, how the demand generation part happens, it's an IBP. So that's how you can link it.
Yeah, I mean, like I want to emerge something like a complete supply chain consultant, right? So I have a good cross functional knowledge, SD and all that. So maybe IBP could be a good thing. I mean, this is like a very new module because sorry, I didn't hear about this module. So that actually took my interest. So when did they introduce this? And I'm sorry, I joined very late. Yeah.
No worries. I mean, it got started in late 2015, 2016, but the momentum got up somewhere around 2018 onwards. Okay.
Oh,
so,
I see.
Right.
It's completely a cloud or
It's complete cloud. It's
complete cloud, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So in a way, yeah, as someone rightly mentioned, you can call it as old because it's there in the market for the last 8 years.
8 years, okay. Yeah. I mean, there's so much happening in SAP, not easy to really keep updated of it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're starting this. Maybe it is a repetition. I'm very sorry, but from next week onwards, is it?
Yes, that's it. It will be on weekends, Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go. Yeah. I'll keep this information. So next week onwards. Yeah. I have to go for a registration on this. So I don't know. Would you mind just giving a registration link here or on my email? I can put my email here.
Yeah, by default you would be getting it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, folks. Yeah.
Akash, do you have any question?
Yeah, hey, hi Parminder. Hi Sam, good evening. So Sam, I was wondering that I just wanted to know that if I'm familiar with the basics of demand planning and supply planning, I want to explore the advanced supply engines like Optimizer. So would this training be feasible for me, or do you have guys any plan for teaching the advanced level of IBP as well?
Right. So, Akash, if you already have working exposure of IBP demand and supply, probably it would be a repetition for you, right? We cover optimization part for sure, right? But it's not deep dive. So, if you have hands-on on configuration part of demand and supply, probably this is not the right session, right? But if you don't have that, then this is the one because we talk about making sure that we understand the planning area architecture. How do I configure each and every object?
Yeah,
Right?
that is something actually I'm familiar with. So that's why I was asking. So someone who wants to learn the advanced techniques of IVP like optimizer and deep dive into those details. So do you guys have any plan
We have
to
a
teach
plan.
that?
We probably along with Parminder, I may design a specific advanced training session. So far, the inquiries which came to us were more on the starting point from IBP perspective, right? And we did not want to jump directly to the advanced functionalities of optimizer, right? But yes,
Sure thing.
in recent couple of months, we had individual sessions with those participants for advanced planning. Like we had sessions on optimizer, SAP APO optimizer concept versus SAP IBP optimizer concepts.
Sure thing. Thanks, Sam. Thanks. That was helpful. Thank you.
And are there many clients get into IBP? Like I'm not seeing a major, the biggest clients like that, still to IBP. Is it like, it's taking the momentum nowadays, and is the clients getting into it?
It took momentum since 2017, 2018. You talk about a client, everybody's using IBP now. I mean, I haven't seen any other tool which has replaced IBP S&OP. It's one of the common tool used by organization. If you have a S&OP implemented, it has to be IBP. Right? There are certain organizations which are using IBP for demand planning and S&OP, but they might be also using Kinaxis, maybe for supply planning or maybe for inventory planning. But most of the renowned organizations, right, like of Unilever and all, I don't want to name the organizations, but yes, those are using IBP.
Okay. And the duration is about 2-3 months?
Mostly we cover it in 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Oh, okay.
So you can cover around 25 to 28 hours of sessions.
Okay. Oh, I think the 8 weeks is good, actually. Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Okay then.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for joining. We are ending this session for now, and we'll connect you next Sunday with the session number 1. Thank you. Bye-bye.